My name is Paige Hamilton. I'm 33 years old, and I make a living managing things that fall apart if you ignore the details. I'm a project manager for a large-scale industrial engineering firm. My job is timelines, budgets, risk mitigation. I deal with contractors who cut corners and clients who want champagne results on a tap water budget. I'm very good at spotting a bad deal, especially the ones wrapped in confidence and excuses. I make solid six figures, but you wouldn't know it by looking at me. I drive a 2015 Toyota Camry with over 140,000 miles. I pack my lunch. I wear Carhartt jackets and Red Wing boots, not because I can't afford more, but because I have a plan. I want to buy a house before I'm 35, either in cash or with such a massive down payment the mortgage feels like a formality. I hate debt. Hate it. Debt is a low-grade fever in your life. It keeps you up at night. It makes every decision heavier than it needs to be. That's where Kyle Bennett and I were supposed to align. Kyle is 29. He works as a social media coordinator for a boutique marketing agency. He makes decent money, but his relationship with it is emotional. He spends a lot of time on TikTok and Instagram, especially content from dating coaches and lifestyle influencers who talk about high-value men, provider energy, and access to resources. Except lately, those videos weren't about men like Kyle. They were about women like me. We'd been together 3 years. He moved into my apartment 2 years ago and has paid exactly $0 in rent or utilities. I covered everything so he could focus on paying down his student loans, about $60,000 from a private university degree in communications. I thought that was partnership. Last week, we were sitting on the couch scrolling Zillow. I found it, a 4-bedroom craftsman on 2 wooded acres. Quiet, solid, perfect. I can put 40% down on this right now, I said, smiling despite myself. My savings just hit the number. Kyle didn't smile back. He stared at the screen, then at me. So, he said slowly, you just have 200 grand sitting in the bank? Yeah, I said, that's the house fund. His jaw tightened. And you've been making me pay my loan minimums every month? The air changed. Pressure dropped. Those are your loans, I said carefully, from before we met. But we're building a future, he snapped. If you were really committed, you'd clear my debt so we could start fresh. You're hoarding money while I'm drowning in interest. I stayed calm. I pay for your roof, your utilities, your food. That's the life raft. The savings is the destination. It's not enough, he said, standing. You don't value my peace. He slammed the bedroom door. 2 days later, my phone buzzed at a job site. A TikTok screenshot. 5 signs. You're dating a Dusty. Under it, Kyle wrote, a high-value woman would clear her man's debt without being asked. Wire $60 to $400 by Friday, or I'm rethinking this relationship. I stared at the screen. It wasn't a request. It was a shakedown. Something inside me didn't explode. It clicked. Cold. Metallic. Fine, I typed back. You're right. The moment I hit send, you're right. My phone lit up like I'd just offered him the moon. Kyle replied instantly, I knew you'd understand. Thank you, baby. I'll send the account info. That was the part that did it. Not the demand, not even the number. It was the confidence, the certainty, like I'd finally stopped being stubborn and started being useful. I stood on a gravel job site with a concrete mixer roaring behind me, men in hard hats shouting measurements, rebar clanging, radios crackling, and in the middle of all that noise, I heard something inside my own chest go quiet, because I finally understood what this was. Kyle didn't see a future with me. He saw a fund. He saw years of early mornings and packed lunches and saying no to little luxuries, and he didn't think, Paige is disciplined. He thought, Paige is a vault, and I deserve the code. I didn't respond. I slid the phone back into my pocket and walked across the site toward my foreman, Luis, who was checking a pour schedule with a clipboard tucked under his arm. Luis, I said. He glanced up. Everything good, Paige? I'm leaving early. His eyebrows rose. You don't leave early. I do today. I kept my voice even. You have the con. Luis watched my face for a second like he was deciding if he should ask more. Family thing, he tried. Something like that, I said. I have to go make a purchase. He didn't understand, but he nodded anyway. Drive safe. I walked to my Camry, my faithful, boring, sensible Camry, and as I opened the door, I looked at it like it was a version of me. The version who always waited. The version who always played the long game. The version who always swallowed irritation because it's not worth the fight. I sat behind the wheel and didn't start the engine right away. Because I wasn't angry. Anger is heat. Anger is a fire that burns fast and makes a mess. What I felt was colder, like I'd found a hidden line item in a contract. Like I'd realized I'd been signing onto a project where the scope kept quietly expanding, until suddenly I was paying for everything. I started the car, and I drove. I had been eyeing the new C8 Corvette Z06 for 2 years. Not obsessively, not like a poster on the wall thing. More like a secret, a private tab in my brain I'd open when I needed motivation. I knew the specs, the trims, the packages, the colors. I'd built it online more times than I'd admit, like a kid building a dream out of pixels. And every time I'd close the tab and tell myself the same sentence. No, the house comes first. Delayed gratification. That's what adults do. That's what responsible people do. That's what I did. Until Kyle turned my responsibility into an insult. Until he used the word dusty like a weapon. Until he put a price tag on staying with him. When I pulled into the Chevrolet dealership, I could still smell concrete dust on my clothes. My boots were scuffed, my hair was tied back, and my safety vest was folded on the passenger seat like a neon reminder of where I'd come from. The showroom looked like a different world. Polished floors, bright lighting, cars posed like art, people walking around in soft sneakers and expensive coats, the kind who looked like they'd never stepped into mud. A salesman approached me with a too bright smile. His eyes flicked to my boots, my vest, my plain Camry keys in my hand. He gave me a look that was technically polite, but the message underneath it wasn't. Used lots around the corner, sweetheart. Can I help you find something? He asked. I didn't return the smile. I want the torch red Z06 on the ramp, I said, pointing. His expression shifted, just a blink of surprise. That's a serious car, he said, like he wasn't sure I knew what words meant. We have a markup on that unit due to demand. I don't care about the markup, I said. I'm paying cash today, right now. It was fascinating, watching his posture change. Like I'd reached behind his face and flipped a switch. Suddenly I was ma'am. Suddenly he wasn't looking at my boots. He was looking at my wallet. Right this way, ma'am, he said, voice smoother. Can I get you an espresso? Water? Anything? Water's fine, I said. He led me toward the car like he was escorting a celebrity. And maybe that's what I was in that moment. A woman who'd spent 5 years grinding quietly and who had finally decided to stop being humble on behalf of someone who didn't deserve it. The paperwork took about 90 minutes. I signed my name, Paige Hamilton, so many times it started to feel like a vow. Not to the car, to myself. I called my bank and authorized a wire transfer. $148,000. Taxes, title, markup, everything. I watched the balance of my house fund drop. It did hurt. Not in a devastating way. More like the sting of pulling a bandage off a wound you've been pretending isn't there. But underneath the sting was something else. Relief. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't doing the responsible thing out of fear. I was doing something out of choice, out of agency, out of control. When the salesman handed me the key fob, it felt heavy in my palm. Solid, real. The kind of weight that said, this is done, this is yours. No one can undo it. I walked into the parking structure like I was stepping into a new chapter. The Corvette sat there like a threat. Torch red paint shining under the lights, aggressive lines, low and unapologetic. I got in, pressed the button. The engine roared, a deep, throaty sound that vibrated through my chest like laughter. I actually smiled. I pulled out of the dealership and onto the road, and the moment I hit the gas, the car surged forward like it had been waiting for me. Like it knew. Like it had been built for the exact second when a woman finally decided she was done being reasonable for someone who called her selfish. The acceleration pinned me back in the seat. My hands tightened on the wheel. And for the first time in days, my mind wasn't full of spreadsheets or Zillow or Kyle's voice. It was just quiet. I drove to a scenic overlook near the river where the sun was beginning to sink, turning everything gold. I parked, got out, leaned against the hood like I belonged there. Then I lifted my phone, took a selfie. Made sure the Corvette logo was visible, the paint glowing, the whole thing looking like a decision no one could argue with. I opened Kyle's text thread, typed one caption. You were right. A high-value woman doesn't hoard money. She drives what she wants. Meet the new love of my life. Dusty no more. Sent. Then I muted my phone, put the car in sport mode, and drove. 3 hours later, I pulled into the garage of my apartment complex. The engine purred as it cooled, like it was satisfied. I sat there in the dark, letting the silence settle. Then I unmuted my phone. It exploded. 18 missed calls, 42 texts, 1 voice note, 4 minutes and 12 seconds long. I stared at the voice note for a second. Then I connected my phone to the Corvette's Bose system. If Kyle wanted a performance, he could have the full theater. I hit play. At first it was screaming, high-pitched panic. Paige, are you insane? Please tell me this is a prank, please. Then sobbing, hyperventilating. You can return cars within 3 days. There's a cooling off period. I looked it up. Take it back right now. Then rage, pure venom. You did this to spite me. You're a child. A high-value woman invests in her partner. She doesn't buy a midlife crisis toy. He actually said midlife crisis. I was 33. Then the guilt attempt. You're ruining my life, Paige. Do you even love me? I turned off the audio. The garage went quiet again. I looked at my reflection in the windshield. And for the first time, I wasn't trying to solve him. I wasn't trying to translate his emotions into something manageable. I wasn't trying to rescue the future. I was just done. I grabbed my bag, got out, and walked upstairs. Kyle was waiting in the living room. Of course he was. He'd been pacing, his hair messy, his face blotchy, eyes shiny, like he'd cried and then gotten angry about crying. He rushed toward me the second I stepped inside. Where is it? He demanded. Did you return it? It's in the garage, I said calmly, tossing the key fob onto the kitchen counter. It landed with a solid, satisfying thunk. And no, I didn't return it. His mouth fell open. His voice cracked. You spent it? I did. How much? About $150 out the door. I opened the fridge like we were discussing groceries. Markups are nasty, but worth it for a Z06. Kyle swayed like I'd slapped him. You spent the down payment, he whispered, like saying it softer might reverse reality. We were going to buy that house, he said, the one on the hill. I shut the fridge and turned to him. No, I said. I was going to buy that house with my money, and you were going to live in it. His eyes flashed. That's not fair. And then you called me Dusty for saving it, I continued, voice still even. You told me a high-value partner pays off your debt without asking. You told me to wire $62,000 by Friday, or you'd rethink this relationship. Kyle's breathing sped up. I was trying to motivate you. You gave me an ultimatum, I said. I accepted the terms. He stared at me like he didn't understand language anymore. I'm not paying your loans, I added. So, per your text, you're now rethinking this relationship. Kyle's face went blank. What? He whispered. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't dramatize it. I didn't need to. It's over, I said. And in the silence that followed, I could practically hear Kyle's brain scrambling, trying to find the right manipulation tool, the right lever, the right button. But there was a problem. He'd been pressing buttons for 3 years. And today, the panel was dead. Kyle didn't yell right away. That surprised me. He just stood there, staring at me like he was waiting for a punchline that never came. You're breaking up with me? He said finally, his voice thin. Because I wanted to be debt-free. I leaned back against the kitchen counter and folded my arms. Not defensively, just to anchor myself. I'm breaking up with you, I said, because you tried to manipulate me into paying a bill I didn't incur by insulting me and threatening to leave. His face twisted. That's not what happened. It's exactly what happened. He shook his head hard, like he could dislodge the truth. You're blowing this out of proportion. It was just a TikTok trend. Everyone's talking about provider energy right now. I'm not everyone, I said, and this isn't energy. It's extortion. The word landed heavy. Kyle flinched like it stung. You're being dramatic, he snapped. Partners support each other. You're supposed to invest in me. I already did, I said calmly. I invested in your rent, your utilities, your groceries, your stability for 2 years. That doesn't count, he shot back. That's basic. There it was. The quiet part said out loud. I nodded slowly. Thank you for clarifying. He took a step toward me, lowering his voice, switching tactics. The reasonable voice. The one he used when he wanted something. Paige, he said softly. We've built a life together. You don't just throw that away over a misunderstanding. This wasn't a misunderstanding, I said. This was you telling me exactly how you see me. He exhaled sharply. So that's it? 3 years? Gone? Over a car? I met his eyes. No, I said. Over respect. For a moment, he looked genuinely lost. Then the panic hit. Where am I supposed to go? He asked. You're seriously kicking me out? You have a job, I said. You have a paycheck. You can find a place. His mouth dropped open. I have lived here for 2 years. I have rights. You're a tenant at will, I replied evenly. You pay 0 rent. I gave you 30 days notice in writing, email, and certified mail. On day 31, I file for formal eviction. He stared at me like he'd just realized I wasn't bluffing. You wouldn't, he said. I would, I said. I already drafted the paperwork. For the first time that night, fear crept into his expression. Real fear. The kind that doesn't care about vibes or TikTok wisdom. The kind that understands consequences. The next week was a masterclass in manipulation. Kyle didn't pack a single box. Not one. Instead, he became louder. On the phone. In the apartment. In the kitchen when I was on work calls. He told his friends I was having a financial manic episode. He told anyone who would listen that I'd chosen a midlife crisis toy over building a family. He said it loud enough for me to hear. I didn't respond. I came home, I cooked, I worked out, I slept in the guest room. I let the silence do the work. Then he tried my family. My mom called me on Tuesday evening. Paige, she said carefully. Kyle called me. He's very upset. I'm sure he is, I said. He says you spent your life savings on a car and refused to help him with his debt. I bought a Corvette, Mom, I said. I can afford it. He gave me an ultimatum. There was a pause. Then my mother chuckled. Well, she said, good for you. I smiled despite myself. He called you Dusty? She asked. Yes. That's rude, she said. What color is the car? Torch red. Oh, she said. Flashy. Your father would have loved that. Can I get a ride on Sunday? My mom is the best. Kyle didn't like that outcome. So he escalated. Thursday night was poker night. My group chat with a few friends from college and work. Kyle had been added years ago for logistics and never removed. At 9:14 p.m., he sent a message. Kyle. Hey guys, I'm really worried about Paige. She's making impulsive financial decisions and refusing to help me with my student loans. She blew her house savings on a car. Can someone talk some sense into her? She's ruining our future. I watched the typing bubbles appear, then disappear, then appear again. Finally, Steve replied. Steve drove a lifted Raptor and had the emotional subtlety of a brick. Steve. She showed us the car at the site. Kyle, it's sick. A pause. Steve. Also, she says you called her a Dusty and asked for $60K. Another pause. Steve, if my wife did that, I'd buy a boat and name it Boundaries. You played yourself. Kyle left the group chat. I didn't say a word. Day 25. Kyle still hadn't packed. He walked around the apartment like he owned it, making smoothies, using my espresso machine, watching TV at full volume. That morning, I was making coffee before work when he leaned against the counter, arms crossed. So, he said, using what I recognized instantly as his therapy voice, I've been doing some thinking. I didn't look up. I've been researching loan consolidation, he continued. If you sell the car now, even at a slight loss, we could still pay off my loans and maybe have a smaller down payment. I finally turned to face him. I'm willing to forgive you for this outburst, he added. We can get back on track. Couples therapy, a fresh start. I stared at him. Then I laughed. Not a cute laugh. Not a polite laugh. A dark, involuntary sound that surprised even me. Kyle, I said, wiping my eyes, I'm not selling the car. His smile faltered. I love the car, I continued, and you're moving out in 5 days. You can't do this, he said, voice rising. I have rights. You have notice, I said, and I have documentation. He took a step back like the floor had shifted. You wouldn't really evict me, he said weakly. I tilted my head. You told me a high-value partner steps up, I said. This is me, stepping up. The delusion finally cracked. He didn't argue. He didn't posture. He just stood there, staring at the counter like he was seeing the apartment for the first time. Not as home, but as something he was about to lose. The shift happened quietly. No screaming, no dramatic confrontation, just a slow, visible unraveling. Kyle finally started packing on day 27. Not because he accepted the breakup, but because reality cornered him. I could tell the exact moment it hit. He was sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop open, scrolling apartment listings. His posture was different. Shoulders hunched, jaw tight. Gone was the confidence. Gone was the influencer vocabulary. No more provider energy. Just numbers. Deposits, credit checks. Monthly rent that didn't care about vibes. Everything decent wants first and last plus a security deposit, he muttered, like the universe was personally insulting him. I didn't respond. I'd learned something important over the last few weeks. Silence is a boundary you don't have to defend. He tried one last angle that night. We were both in the living room, me on the couch reviewing a project schedule, him standing near the window like a man rehearsing a speech. You know, he said casually, none of this had to get this ugly. I looked up. It got ugly the moment you put a price on staying with you, I said. He sighed. I just needed support. You needed money, I corrected. Support was already provided. His mouth opened, closed. Then came the guilt. I thought you believed in us. I did, I said. That's why this hurts. That one landed. Because it was true, and he knew it. The next few days were frantic for him. Phone calls behind closed doors. Voices dropping when I walked by. Friends suddenly busy. No one wanted a roommate who brought debt, entitlement, and drama in equal measure. Eventually, he called his parents. They lived 3 hours away in a town he once described as suffocating. They told him he could come home. He didn't thank them. He complained to me instead. They don't get it, he said. They expect me to start over. I didn't answer. Because starting over is what happens when shortcuts fail. Moving day arrived on a gray Saturday morning. A rented van idled outside the building. Kyle moved slower than necessary, dragging boxes like each one was an accusation. He tried to take the Dyson vacuum. That's mine, I said, stepping into the doorway. I used it, he argued. I bought it, I replied. Put it down. He hesitated. Then he did. Next was the blender. Mine. The cookware. Mine. The espresso machine. Definitely mine. By the end, what he had left fit exactly into the space he'd earned. Clothes, shoes, toiletries, electronics. No assets, no equity, no future leverage. At the door, he stopped, turned back. His eyes were red, not performative this time, real. You're going to regret this, he said quietly. A car can't love you. I met his gaze without anger. A car also doesn't insult me, I said. Doesn't threaten me. And doesn't ask for $60,000. I opened the door wider. Drive safe. He stood there for another second like he wanted me to chase him. I didn't. The door closed. The apartment was silent. And for the first time in years, it felt like mine. The first thing I noticed after Kyle moved out wasn't the quiet. It was the air. The apartment felt lighter, like someone had opened a window I didn't realize had been sealed shut for 3 years. I slept better almost immediately. No tension humming under my skin, no anticipating someone else's moods, no bracing for the next conversation. Peace, it turns out, has a sound. It sounds like nothing. Financially, the difference was immediate. Without Kyle's groceries, utilities, subscriptions he forgot to cancel, and spontaneous spending that somehow always landed on my card, I was saving about $3,500 a month. I updated my spreadsheet. I didn't feel regret. I felt efficiency. The house would come later. My sanity was already here. 2 months passed. The Corvette never stopped making me smile. Every time I pressed the start button, the engine's growl felt like a reminder, not of rebellion, but of alignment. I joined a local car club. Weekend canyon drives replaced endless relationship postmortems. People talked torque curves, interest rates, and market trends. No one asked me to fix their life. Kyle, on the other hand, did not land on his feet. He posted a TikTok about his toxic ex, who chose a midlife crisis car over building a family. The video went viral, for reasons he didn't expect. People recognized the story. Screenshots circulated. The comments were brutal. She didn't choose a car, she chose boundaries. Imagine calling someone dusty and then asking for $60K. That Corvette holds value better than your degree. Kyle deleted the account a week later. Then came the bill. A toll violation from the State Turnpike Authority, $50 with late fees. Kyle had driven my Camry months earlier and never told me. I stared at the paper for a moment. Then I opened Venmo. Request $50 note, toll violation from March. Declined. I smiled. Sent it again. Note, please pay by 5 p.m. or I send the dashcam footage of you curbing my rims to your insurance company. Premiums are high this year. He paid in 3 minutes. The final irony came on a Sunday morning at Cars and Coffee. That's where I met Ethan Reed. He drove a Mustang GT 5.0. Clean, well-maintained, clearly loved. We talked for over an hour about engines, career paths, and housing markets. No posturing, no testing, just curiosity. He worked as a logistics coordinator, owned his own condo, 0 student debt. When we grabbed burgers afterward, he reached for the check. I beat him to it. You bought the coffee, I said. I've got this. He smiled, not threatened, not offended, aligned. I told him the dusty story. He laughed so hard he had to wipe his eyes. High value isn't paying someone else's bills, he said. It's matching values. Exactly. I named the Corvette Dusty. Not out of spite, out of memory. Because every time I shift gears, I remember the moment I stopped negotiating my worth and started driving it.